Welcome to the Media Lab. And Dr. Gabe Grant was kind enough to accept to give us a tour of the tools, or use different tools than metals, than wood. Dr. Gabe Grant. Would you give him a hand, please?
Thank you. I understand this is a research class, right? Okay. We have a variety of different research projects that we do here in the Media Lab. Not only do we deal with all things digital, we also deal with tangible items. One of the tools that we will use for different types of research is this screen printing press. The way that the screen printing press actually works is that we will have different mediums that we can take and put it on the press, and of course take the screens down that we have and then be able to transfer the image to the shirt itself. Now on the screen printing press, it has some adjustable components, some interchangeable components. These platens, which actually holds a shirt, we can put just about any size on there for larger t-shirts or smaller sleeve prints. So a lot of those components on this press are interchangeable. The screens themselves come with a variety of different characteristics. Some of them have meshes that are more apt to allow ink to be printed through. Some are a little bit thinner for us to be able to print different inks and different characteristics and qualities. And even with the press itself, we have to use different squeegees, which are really just tools that we have that have different characteristics, different flexibility, which allow us to be able to apply different levels of ink to the textiles, to the glass, or to the metals that we're actually capable of printing in this lab. Each of these different tools that we have end up being different variables that you have to control for whenever we're doing research. The research project, which I pulled this screen out right now, that I've got some undergraduate students that are doing, involves the printability of textile inks. And so they've got a variety of different textile inks that they're going to be using the screen printing press, different screens, and try out different squeegees to see what's going to give them the optimal result as they use different types of ink. That's just one of the tools that we have available to us. Some of the other things that we deal with, and you can come in closer, just don't touch anything. Sometimes ink
This goes around, or what?
What's that?
Did this go around? Or?
Yeah, it does go around. So it's got a lot of different moving parts, a lot of different adjustments that we have to be careful of. This head itself is really just to hold the frame, but then whenever we have to register multiple colors, which is something that we have to do from time to time, we have registration capabilities, which is adjustable for all 6 of the different heads. So there's a lot of things that we have to watch here to ensure that we have these multiple colors and components that line up with one another.
So really, one project here and different processes, or what? Or different projects?
You can have multiple projects at one time on one press, or you can use the entire press to do one project at a time. Just for an example, you can see up here that we've got a lot of different shirts with different colors up here. And whenever you see something like this white shirt with blue and green on here, that was 2 different screens that we had to be able to account for, 2 different ink colors, and then we also had to use 2 different types of squeegees to be able to get an optimal printing result in here. So some of that's production, but some of that students have to figure out on their own by either looking up what the recommended specifications are, or they have to do a little bit of applied research on the go for them to get the optimal result. Some of the other tools or factors that we have to take care of whenever we're printing, sometimes we have to dry the ink to certain temperatures, especially if we're going to be putting multiple layers down or multiple colors. One of the tools that we have at our disposal is an air-forced flash unit, and what it actually does is it applies heat to the shirt, but it uses a fan to be able to blow the heat onto the ink to cure it. What's different from this is we also have what are called infrared heaters, which is really nothing more than just kind of like the elements that are inside of your oven that are just applying a heat. Each of these tools do the same thing, which is they'll heat up the ink to a curing temperature, but there are limitations. Of course, this dryer, if you put it on a shirt for too long, you can actually burn or scorch a shirt. So you have to be mindful of that. It's also not as good for doing water-based types of inks or plastisols. This one, although it won't do any scorching and is optimal for water-based inks, takes longer for it to be able to cure the ink. So we have to be mindful of that if we're going to be designing a research project or think of a task that we have to do, what's going to be the optimal setup to be able to get the results that we're looking for.
Now you have the material for the ink and material for the shirt itself. How
Yeah.
would you balance between both?
That is a little bit of research. What we have to do is we have to look at what the manufacturer recommends for the specifications. There are some inks that work better on 100% cotton t-shirts as opposed to 50-50, which is a 50% blend of polyester and cotton. Part of that, we end up with inks that are so new that they come from different manufacturers, or we have to apply additives to them to see if they'll actually print on the textile. And some of the textiles that we're receiving are coming into the marketplace, we're not sure what the optimal setting is. One of the types of textiles that we've done research on in the past is with recycled polyester cotton t-shirts, which actually have a 3% blend of what it really is milk jug blended into the plastic whenever they build the polyester and then weave it together. And so whenever you've got an additional variable in the material that you're working with, you're not going to know what your optimal result is unless you put the ink on there and then start to do some time, temperature, pressure, what squeegee actually goes into it. So there's a lot of factors that go into even just a process like screen printing to figure out what your optimal result is going to be. So one of the other tools that we will have to be considerate of is, of course, the final curing unit, which is a belt dryer. On this belt dryer, we can adjust things like the temperature and also the speed at which the textiles, metals will actually go through the dryer itself. And that's critical because if you have it going too slow through the dryer, you can burn or scorch the garment or actually overheat the inks that we use. And I've seen examples where students who are working on tasks or projects, they've actually bubbled the ink off the shirt because it was going too slow. Or the other component, having it too hot or too cold, because if the ink does not come up to a temperature of 330 degrees for plastisol, it won't bind to the fabric itself. And you can see part of that whenever you pull it apart, and believe it or not, in some of that research, your hands are the best tool that you have to be able to test it. But other ways for us to be able to test it would involve things like magnifying glasses, which we keep in drawers to be able to look at it. We also have microscopes, which we can look at how it bonds to the fabric after it's been printed. Sometimes we need to look at how long the ink is going to last on a shirt. And so another tool that we'll use to see how well it holds up over time is we will take some of the printed samples that we have down here upstairs to the material testing lab, and we have a washer and dryer up there. And we use it and we'll wash the shirts for 15, 20 different cycles just to see how well the ink holds up over time on the shirt. And that may be dependent upon the type of ink that we're using. It could also be dependent upon the process. It could also be dependent upon the materials that we had, of course, cotton or polyester. So
This machine looks like the machine they use in the pizza places for heat.
Mm-hmm.
This is not heat, this is drying.
No, it is actually heat. There
heat.
are heated elements in here. It is infrared, just like this dry unit that we have over here. It doesn't run as slow as a pizza oven, though, and it's also set up to really get the product out of there in about 60 seconds or less is what we're optimally looking for. So,
But the manufacturers of this kind of equipment could be doing both, right?
they could be doing both,
Because you
absolutely.
change some things here or there, but this main idea.
Right, yes, exactly. So,
Any questions? Media? You did very well. Give him a hand, please.
Yep. And I can tell you another piece of research that we'll also be doing here in the future. I mean, I know a lot of people come in here and think, hey, it's just t-shirts, but one of the things that I've written grants for and we have at our disposal now is for motion capture equipment. For anybody who's familiar with character animation or gaming or even some of the techniques that they do in video, you have markerless motion capture, and then of course you have markered motion capture. And what's fascinating about those is the equipment ranges from just a really complex camera that you can use to be able to capture the motion of a character being animated, or a full-blown suit that you have to put on. And people say that there's a difference in time, accuracy, and also the quality of the capture that you're actually able to make. So in the future, you'll probably, if you stop by here, see some people doing some pretty weird things or dancing in the middle of the room. But really what we're doing is we're actually doing a comparative study on whether markerless versus markered motion capture, which one of the two is better, and what are the differences that we have between the two of them. So
You can take the class for dancing if you like.
yeah, exactly. So.